This presentation will provide you with some tips on what elements to include in the first sentence of your summary, other important elements of a summary, and some sample summary practice. A favorite pastime of many adults and kids alike is going to the movies. When asked about the plot of the movie, most individuals can reasonably summarize the basic plot in one simple sentence. In many facets of life, summaries are used on a regular basis, such as in television show descriptions, product reviews, and executive business reports. In the world of academics, there are certain conventions which are traditionally used for summarizing, and in this world, if you simply read a text, think about it, and put another individual's ideas into your own words without any type of citation and hand it in, you may face a 0 on an assignment, or a 0 in a course, a failure in a class, or ultimately expulsion from an educational institution. But let's not linger on these unpleasantries of academic life. Instead, let's have happy thoughts of you, the writer, using your own wording, paraphrasing from the writer's ideas, using key words, organizing your ideas, and including descriptive terms. Let's begin with the first sentence of the summary, which is by far the most important element, like the main course at a wedding banquet. The reader may be forgiving of some mishaps along the way, but messing up the main course could ruin your reputation and ruin a good meal. It's best to spend extra time on this element and get it right before moving on. The first item needed is the actual title of the article or section of text. You will also want to include the author's full name, the year of publication of the text, a present tense reporting verb such as describes, examines, addresses, and the main idea of the entire article or section. So again, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements which make up the first sentence of the summary. If you are working outside of the world of academics, perhaps you are already finished with your summary and it is enough to satisfy your viewers or other consumers. In the world of academics, you're just getting warmed up. You may have another 90 to 150 words to produce, depending on whether you use this summary as a potential abstract or not. The basic essence of summarizing requires you to do quite a bit of paraphrasing. This means placing 3 to 5 major ideas into your own words. It sounds easy, right? But it's not so easy if you don't understand the article you just read. So for this reason, I strongly advise you to read over the article a few times, write notes in the margin of the text if you have a hard copy, otherwise jot down some notes as you read. Once you have a good sense of what is being said, you will take on the role of an internal investigator. Your job is to investigate what key words and ideas are carried over within this text. Consider making a brief listing of 3 to 5 terms that you feel need to be carried over into the body of your summary. Including key words used by the authors makes for a tighter connection to the original text. Your next job as the investigator is to look at how the information is organized. Is the writer discussing a number of personal experience, explaining a particular procedure, giving a historical trace of significant issues in history, defining a concept, presenting a case study, exploring a theory? You will most likely find a few organizational elements that you can pick out to mention to the reader. Once you identify these various organizational elements, you should directly mention them in your summary. Remember, your job is to make the life of the reader easier by decoding this mass of information. As the investigator, you will also want to consider how you will tackle all the information presented to you. It might be wise to make divisions, perhaps 3 to 5 of them, within the text. Consider how each major section is organized, and then also what the major idea is expressed there. Give the broad picture presented rather than zeroing in on a list of ideas. Avoid simply listing a whole bunch of items in your summaries. You want the reader to see how information is organized and the main points expressed within given parts of the text. A list of information is not descriptive enough for the reader, and it is often a disappointment to read. Another major piece of advice I have for you is to use a few descriptive terms in your summary. Once you have already reread the article a few times, you now have a sense of the tone of the writer. Your job then is to read between the lines and assess the information coming across to the reader. Now that I have a few helpful tips at your disposal, it's time for a brief review. Can you answer the following questions? What troubles may await you if you borrow the ideas of others without citing? Can you name a few features of an academic summary? Which sentence of the summary is the most important? What information is contained in that sentence? What are some organizational questions to consider when reading a text? Name a helpful technique to use when you need to figure out how to organize your notes from the text into a summary. What do descriptive terms add to a text? Included in this presentation is an excerpt from a newspaper article. I would like you to take some time right now to write out a one-sentence summary of this information. First, read over the excerpt a few times. Then, locate the key words and observe the organization of ideas. Include the 5 features of a one-sentence summary without simply providing a list of information. When you are happy with your sentence, you can move on to examine my sample, and then move on from there to seek out your own article and begin the summarizing process. Take your time and come back to your writing on a few occasions. Editing is also a must in the writing process.